another video for you guys today. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about the connections that I use and the connectors I use for the fixtures and everything. So starting out, if you don't really know much about the industry, it takes a long time to kind of get all of your pieces together, what lights you're using, the fixtures that you're using, the equipment, the materials, all of that good stuff, just like any line of work. So over the course of 2 years of doing this now, I've got a pretty good idea of what I like to use for efficiency, ease of use, quality control, what's going to last the longest, those kind of things. And this is all trial and error, just as anything. So basically what I've found, and all applications are different. Sometimes you have to use heat shrink, sometimes you have to use wire nuts. I don't like to use wire nuts very much, but there is a time and a place for them. What I have here is the Loc connector, and the Loc looks like this. It's got a small screw in it. Basically it's filled with really heavy duty electrical grease in there to keep the connection from being compromised by moisture. You splice the wires, you put them together, you put them in that opening, you tighten it down over top of the wire. They don't go anywhere. These Locs snap together like this. Really simple, super quick. So that's how looks like that. Get the wires going in. You see that grease coming out. This screw will go down on top of the insulated part and keep that thing from moving, keep those wires from moving. When I'm making a connection with these, I think an important part to explain is that you want to fan these copper strands out. Like so. And then that way when you go to make your connection, I'm holding a phone so it's hard for me to do both, but basically you can see what I'm talking about. You fan them out. That way when you put these together, you're actually smashing those wires together rather than just twisting them. So that's a little tip I learned, I think actually on the Loc educational video that they have. But so that's that. I just wanted to go full for a lot of reasons. Sometimes, if I got a bunch of wires coming together, I might throw a brass crimp on there. Crimps fit, the big ones fit right inside of there, keeps those lights a little more secure, keeps those wires a little more secure. So the other thing I wanted to talk about, and it took me a while to do this, I was just like, wow, I'll just strip wires the old-fashioned way. It's working fine. I'm pretty quick at it. Finally went out and got me one of these bad boys, and I'm going to tell you, your hands will thank you. Stripping wires really does a number on your thumbs and your fingertips, pulling the wire, and then that insulated layer on top of the wiring. It really can mess your hands up. This thing is just easy, does all the work for you, has all the markings. You can do as small as 20 gauge all the way up to 10 gauge wires. So it's got all the sizes. It's got a cutter. I think I'm still going to have to use kind of both a lot of the time. But as far as stripping your wire and being very accurate, not cutting the copper, all that good stuff, this Klein Tools Catapult stripper is a pretty cool thing. So, like I said, I like to keep these around, just easier to cut wires in half. What I'm doing, I'm just wiring this uplight in. So I like to take my normal wire strippers. It's got a nice sharp cutting edge in here. It's easy to split those wires in half and separate them. The Klein Catapult stripper, this thing, doesn't really have anything where you can just separate wires. You'd have to just use a knife or something on top of it. So I'm using both strippers. I'm going to go ahead and show you on here. You got your wire gauges. Basically what you do is you stick your wire through whatever gauge wire it is, push it through to where you want the strip part to go down to, and it's just simply squeezing it. It pops it right off, strips that thing perfectly. It's important because a lot of the time, even if you're using the right number on here, it's very easy to cut that copper. So, you know, then at that point, you might be taking a 12 gauge down to 14 gauge if you're cutting all those copper strands off. So if you want to be accurate, make a nice clean strip of wire, expose that stuff the way it should be without cutting anything that you shouldn't, making it clean for a good solid connection. Pop those bad boys, bam, 4 wires done just like that. You know, whatever that took, 5 seconds. And I'm gonna go ahead and clean up my wire lead off of the spotlight I'm using on this large oak tree. And show you again real quick. It's a little smaller wire, so I'm going to go down to the next gauge, 14/12. Pop that off, put that through there on the designated number of wire gauge. The lead coming off the lights typically is a little bit smaller. This one's 14 gauge, and boom, you have them stripped. So basically 6 wires stripped, a little bit of talking in between, but you can see I could have done that in 30 seconds. As for the Loc connectors, the way these are done is get your wires that you're putting together. If you don't know anything about lighting, low voltage lighting, the wires come one ribbed wire or lined wire, if you want to call it that, and then one wire will have writing on it. So a good way to keep your stuff straight is do the lined wire to lined wire, the wire with writing to the wire with writing, and that'll make sure that you're keeping your hot current, your live current going on the same wire to the fixtures, and your neutral or common going to the same wire on your fixtures. So if you don't know much about lighting, that's how that's done. Low voltage is only 2 wires, but you still want to make sure that you're putting, you don't want to do common to live coming off your transformer or something. You're going to have issues. The current doesn't travel that way. So basically I stripped those, as you saw. You take the copper and you basically fan it out. Put the wires together, twist them, stick your Loc on there. Make sure you get it down. Like I said, the grease is pretty hardcore, so you got to kind of squish it in there. Make sure it's nice and solid. And all you got to do is twist those down by hand. It does have a Phillips head screw on there. You can tighten it as tight as you want, but you really don't have to. It doesn't seem like those wires are going anywhere.